All right, Clean Freaks, my name is Hank Balch. Thanks for tuning in to this special release here from the SteelcoBelimed team. I've got a great guest queued up with us today. It's a name that you're going to recognize if you've been around Beyond Clean for any amount of time, but also if you've been around the industry. Miss Anita Castle is the Associate Vice President of Sterile Processing System at RWJ Barnabas Health in New Jersey. And Anita, you have spoke, you've written, you've been published, you've been very involved in this space for a long amount of time. So like I said, I think a lot of folks are going to know your name, but it's a pleasure to have you on the interview today.
Thank you.
But let's start maybe at the very beginning. Just that RFP process, the request for proposals. Why do we start there in sterile process when we're looking to make these big purchases of capital equipment, or we're looking to do big construction renovation processes? Why does it start with the RFP?
Well, I think that, it starts there because there's a lack of understanding as well of what Central Sterile actually does. I think that, of course, across the country, we have to, be able to speak on why we need things, how it affects the rest of the operating procedures in the hospital, not just the operating room, but clinics everywhere. We have to be able to explain how what we do affects other areas. And I think with that RFP process, we got all these hospitals building new things, building new floors, expanding the complexity of work at your particular hospital, and then healthcare in general is changing. And then even in today's times, we're already anticipating some changes coming down the line here in the near future of things. So when you have that, you have to be able to justify the costs. Sterile processing isn't one that they always see as a money maker. But one thing they are starting to realize, and I have seen this over the years, that these past 5 years, I think you're getting more and more acknowledgement from C-suite and administration, understanding that we may not make the money, but the ones that do, like your operating rooms that make the most money for a hospital, cannot survive without the central sterile department. So if you don't invest in sterile processing, you're going to have further issues in your operating room with efficiencies and throughput, infections, whatever it may be.
In your experience, how do you determine that objective? And then, as you said previously, how do you communicate your clinical objective in a way that transfers or communicates to the administration, to the C-suite, so they understand what exactly the goal is beyond maybe just your clinical goal, right?
What I have learned is that the C-suite and administration really know numbers. They really focus on numbers. So if you're able to show that machine being down for this amount of time over this period of time, over 6 months maybe, you can show that how much that costs per the operating room minutes. So how much does that delay things? So when you can put those numbers together, and believe me, I'm not a mathematician, so I get it. That's very hard to do. But a lot of these companies will come in and do those assessments for you for free in hopes of winning, your bid for that equipment. So use that, service, especially if you're interested in specific vendors, but use that service to be able to present those numbers to the C-suite.
All right, so I'm curious on the RFP process itself, drafting this, if it's a new piece of equipment that you're quoting out, or if you're looking at a big scale renovation. Are you doing a lot of research prior to you drafting up the RFP itself? Or are you using the RFP process as the research to let other folks and vendors and manufacturers kind of tell you what is out there? What are the options? What are those competitive analysis? Like, how do you really work that? Is there a way that works best? Talk us through that.
Doing your research, I think, is the most important, because everybody is going to, and rightfully so, they're all going to, they believe in their product, so they're going to pitch their product. But there are things that maybe they don't share with you. So I think that it's very important for you to do your research, whether that is going to other sites, visits, actually calling, talking to leaders, I found it more helpful to actually go to sites instead of calling. So I'm one that likes to see things and be more hands on. I want to touch it, I want to look at it, I want to ask the staff, not just the leader. I want to ask people, how does this work for you? What do you think about it? So I think that for me, that was the biggest part, is doing that, going to sites.
As you're putting your RFPs together, what role does collaboration play? Are you reaching out to infection prevention? Are you involving clinical engineering at this stage, or is that happening at a future stage down the road?
Absolutely. That's a great point, because if I looked back maybe 10 years ago, I may not be able to have those same conversations, or be able to do that RFP without help of others. So, especially newer leaders, or that someone that hasn't been through this process before, maybe it's their first time, definitely reach out to your, especially infection control and clinical engineering. I think they're your biggest support in those kind of projects. And then also reaching out to colleagues across, our network, I think is really, really important. Everybody's always willing to help.
It appears that you approach this uh, process differently, which is obviously going to have impact on the RFP and the procurement conversation. But just talk us through here for a few minutes what you did and what's so special about uh, the construction renovation project that you guys did there at the main campus.
One thing I can say is, don't rush. I know we're all in a hurry. We want to get the project done. We want to hurry up and have a new CSP, but doing your research and then visualizing what are your needs. And I do find that every facility doesn't need the same thing. I do not have the same things at all of them, due to that fact that their needs are different. So it depends on the complexity of the work that your department is doing, how many clinics they're supporting, how many ORs they're supporting, and then what are your current hurdles in that facility. So first, put your goals together. What are you trying to accomplish in your new department? Not just space, not just new equipment that doesn't break down, but what do you actually want to accomplish?
How did you lean on or collaborate with these vendor partners out there through this RFP process to say which one of these can help me?
When you're looking to do something that's going to affect your staff, going to affect the hospital, the patients, you have to take your personal feelings out of it. And so, in doing that, one of the things, you partner with all of them, and you hear what they have, and you go do your research on them. The one thing that set it apart for me was someone listening to what I actually need and what my vision is for solving each of these things. I narrowed it down to two. And then as I continued working and doing research, I wound up, choosing one vendor, that was Steelco at the time. And what set them apart for me over every other vendor wasn't just the equipment. What set it apart for me was the customization, partnering with them and their engineers.
I'm curious about how you would encourage other department leaders on how to conduct a site visit well.
I want to hear the good and the bad and the ugly. Some of the questions I was asking was, how is your service? How is the response time? How much downtime have you had? How many times, in the past 30 days has this equipment gone down? How long have you had it? Because that makes a difference too. So asking those questions. Then also, as you see staff operating the equipment, asking the staff. The staff are always going to tell you much more than the leadership does.
Right. When the RFP closes and you make your decision, I'm assuming what happens next. Obviously, like, you've agreed to go one direction with one vendor, but then all these other vendors who did not get this particular job, they've got a decision to make. How they behave, how they interact, how responsive they are for other conversations at that point, in my mind, will differentiate a lot about the individual, about the company they represent. So, what have you seen the best way for them to manage and for you to manage those ongoing relationships, knowing, hey, I'm going to have to make other decisions in probably 6 months at other facilities or other projects. Um, we all still need to collaborate together.
So just because I didn't go with this vendor here, there may be a reason I need that at the other site. I get it can be disappointing, but you have to understand, again, it's business, it's not personal. I can use you again for other things. And then the ones that do get the RFP, you want to pay attention to that too. Are they just the same amount of attention and service that they gave you trying to get the RFP? How are they now that you've made a decision? Because before those POs are cut, you can change your mind.
Yeah.
So how is that? Are they still being attentive? Are they still working with you, still collaborating on everything?
Our managers and directors out there that are maybe a little earlier in their career, they haven't been through as many projects and these conversations that we're talking about today. How would you encourage them or instruct them to be transparent in what they want and where they are in their decision making process without giving false hope?
I think it's important to early on partner with different people in your facility, whether it be clinical engineering, infection control, to also make sure that the things you don't know, especially as a new leader. We don't hear about electrical, we don't hear about ventilation, we don't hear about so there's so many things that to consider that you may not know as a new leader.
Okay, Anita, what is your final piece of advice for clinicians, not only sterile processing leaders? What do they need to know about the sterile processing selection process?
I, I think that the decisions are made a lot by them sometimes, and a lot of times they don't know how central functions, how it runs, but they help make those decisions. A lot of times they make those decisions based on cost versus on efficiency and the needs of your staff and the needs of your workflow. So I think it's important to make sure you're meeting with them, whoever your decision makers are, meeting with them, doing tours with them in your current space, letting them know what you're thinking and what you're trying to accomplish. That was huge. Even going down to, I had the CEO of the whole system come and, ask, why do we need this? Oh, let me show you. Let me give you a bunny suit. So I think getting them in their boots on the ground is key. And then also partnering, we have a huge network in sterile processing. We have LinkedIn, we have Beyond Clean, we have all these different avenues. Reach out to people, even if it's not someone you know personally. Reach out. We're always willing to help, give tips and advice. Not feeling like you're alone is going to be key. Knowing that there's one of us out here that have been through it, and even us, we can learn from someone new that is doing something different. So networking is huge, and involving the right people in your organization.
I love it. I love it. All right, Nina. Well, thank you so much. You've been watching a special interview from Beyond Clean with the SteelcoBelimed team. And we want to remind you, like we do each and every time here at Beyond Clean, until next time, keep fighting dirty.